In April of 2022, I got fully diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer that had metastasized my liver. My liver is fully covered. I don't just rely on my oncologist and obviously my family doctor, because I don't think, to be honest with you, I don't think I'd be here today if I just relied on their advice. I had to take things in my own hands. And when I don't have the chemo bottle attached to me, I feel like I don't have cancer. And there's days that I can challenge a student in my gym. Let's do 100 push-ups right now, and I'm beating all of them. Health-wise, besides this horrible cancer that's in me, I'm the best I've ever been in my life, health-wise, in terms of the way my body feels and the weight I'm at and the mental clarity and everything.
All right, good morning, everybody. Today we have with us a special guest. We're going to have Jeff with us, who's going to share his success story, I suppose. Jeff, good morning. How are you doing today?
I'm very good. Good morning, Dr. Baker. It's an absolute honor and privilege to be on with you today. Thank you.
Likewise, I always enjoy having people and getting to meet people. Where are you located, if you don't mind sharing what part of the world you're in?
Yeah, I'm located in Southern Ontario in Canada.
Okay.
And I'm actually, my hometown is Brantford, home away in Gretzky, but I'm actually just about 45 minutes away from Brantford today. I'm in the city of Waterloo, Ontario. My son is actually running a cross-country meet here today, and he's in grade 10. So I've timed it so that I can be on with you, and I'm going to go check him out in a little bit.
Good luck to your son. Hopefully he does well. Is it 5K or something like that? Well, I ran cross-country.
It's 5K, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right.
Good for you. Awesome. Were you a hockey guy? You mentioned Wayne Gretzky. Obviously, you think
I've become a hockey guy. Both my sons have played it. They both play a lot of soccer. And I always wanted to play hockey growing up, but I had Italian immigrants that was new to them. So as parents, so I didn't get a chance, but now I'm really enjoying it. My father was a diehard Montreal Canadian fan, and so am I.
All right. I've been to Ontario. I've been to Ottawa one time. That's my only experience in that part of the world, but pretty. It was nice to have that. I think they were skating on the canal. It was wintertime, and they do that big thing. Let's get started with your background. So tell us, we got heard a little bit about your family. This is obviously a success story, so I guess we got to start somewhere at the bottom. So where were you and how'd you get there?
Okay. In April of 2022, so probably about a year and a half ago, I got fully diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer that had metastasized to my liver. My liver is fully covered. And I started the treatment in end of May 2022. So about a month and a half after getting fully diagnosed, I started my treatment, the chemotherapy treatment. And I did chemotherapy for I received chemotherapy every other week, every other Wednesday at a hospital. And then I go home with a chemo bottle, a different type of chemo, special for colon cancer. And for the first 3 rounds, I did just pretty much chemo. But then a good friend of mine and some other close people, part of my team right now, they encouraged me to add a lot more things in. And one of the most important things, I think, was changing my diet. And I started with a ketogenic diet, and it's pretty much turned into carnivore for the past year, varying from week to week. I basically have an eating week and a non-eating week. Today's Wednesday. I haven't eaten since Sunday night. And I won't eat till Friday evening when my bottle comes off. And I've had a lot of success in what I'm doing, Dr. Baker. And a lot of it actually has to do with yourself and a lot of doctors that I've taken on YouTube that I consider them my doctors, because I don't just rely on my oncologist and obviously my family doctor, because I don't think, to be honest with you, I don't think I'd be here today if I just relied on their advice. I had to take things in my own hands. And now I'm on this kind of YouTube journey telling my story. And I want to thank you for getting me here, because you motivated me and inspired me. And another good friend of mine wanted me to say hi to you today is Kerry Mann. He's quite known in the carnivore world. He wanted me to say hi to you, and he's helped me out in the last month or so with the YouTube world.
Yeah, I talked to Kerry recently. I think we did a podcast with him. Wow, that's incredible. That's a very, obviously, big thing that's going on here. So remind me, when was the diagnosis and when did the treatment start? Again, what year was that?
April of 2022 was the diagnosis. Mm-hmm. And then I started chemo end of May 2022. And I did a full year till May 2023 of chemo. And that was 27 rounds. And I asked my oncologist for a break. My good friend who's been coaching me through all this, especially with carnivore and fasting and exercise and supplements, my good friend said, hey, you need to take a break. You need to try to do this without chemo. So my oncologist granted me a break. This past June, July, and August, I had 3 months off. And I did well. I had a lot going on during those 3 months. Summertime, my father got sick and passed away just recently. So I had a lot going on. So I think the cancer didn't get worse, didn't get better being off chemo. It didn't get worse. So I'm back on chemo September 15th, and I've had 3 more rounds, 28, 29, and 30. I just finished my 30th round of chemo just yesterday. I had chemo at the hospital, and now I have, you can see on my chest, I have chemo going in me right now till tomorrow night, 46-hour drip of this chemo. And normally I'm pretty down today, but you've got me smiling because I'm on with you. So thank you.
Well, I'm glad you're feeling better today. That's good to hear. Let me ask you the timing of the ketogenic and carnivore diet, did that start after the cancer diagnosis? Were you doing that previous to that, or when was the timing of that?
No, the cancer diagnosis, that's a really good question. My whole life, I probably was a pretty Mediterranean type of diet, especially with my mom being Italian immigrant. She was a very good, she was a modern Italian cook, very clean. Then life happens, you get married, you have kids. And I probably ventured into the SAD diet for quite some time, even as I'm a high school phys ed teacher, and I have been for 21 years. But with busy life, I think that horrible diet that we all somewhat take in, I took that in. And then it was summer of 2021. I actually, and this is coming out of the pandemic, because I remember this, June, we were in a lockdown here in Ontario, June of 2021. We were in the last lockdown. And I was barbecuing a lot of meats and eating great family meals. But along with the meats, my wife was making rice, potatoes, veggies, so all that. And I decided I was getting bloated June 2021. So I said to my family, hey, I'm going to become a vegetarian, because I did what a lot of people do. They eliminate the meat, which we've been brainwashed to do. I blamed it on the meat. So I went vegetarian for 6 months. My mother was really upset with me being an Italian immigrant. She knows how important meat is. So from the summer of 2021 all the way to actually Christmas, January 2022, because then I knew something was wrong with me, and I went off work February 1st, 2022, because something was wrong. And then I had to diagnose myself. My family doctor, I was telling him I was having problems. I was going to work. He diagnosed me being mentally depressed and having anxiety, but I knew there was something more than that. So I was off work February 2022, March. And then at the end of March, I pretty much begged my family doctor for ultrasounds and colonoscopy, because I was diagnosing myself that I had colon cancer. And then I finally got granted a colonoscopy. And then from there, they found the tumor. It was quite large, covering half of my sigmoid. And then from there, they said, you're going to have surgery, but the surgery never ended up happening, because by the time I got the CT scan, then they told me my liver's fully covered, and they deemed me inoperable, incurable, palliative, terminally ill. So that's, hopefully I helped explain it a little bit better there.
Yeah. And sometimes they'll do a debulking procedure, even if they can't, they'll do partial something like that. That was not done. You had no surgery then. Is that right?
No surgery. And to be honest with you, Dr. Baker, at first, when I got diagnosed, like anyone, I wanted everything ripped out of me. I was really hoping, but I've come to an understanding that just because I'm inoperable right now, I'm okay with that. I've been chopping away at it. And that full year I was doing chemo with carnivore, fasting, exercise, naturopath, osteopath, supplements. That full year from May to May, I had 5 scans. And every single scan, I had shrinkage on all my tumors on my liver. And my oncologist says he's never seen that before with what I have at my stage. So I had success. Like normally he says he sees it on the first scan and then it goes stable. And then when that chemo stops working, we put you on a different line. I'm still on the same chemo. I'm having a lot of success. So I'm getting back to your question. I didn't have an option to have surgery. I never had surgery, and I'm okay with it. I'm okay with the way I'm living right now, especially with all the integrative healthcare measures that I've been adding on.
Yeah, and I'm not an oncologist. Certainly it's not my, specialty, but when you hear stuff like that, it's like, that's pretty cool. And if you look at the survival rates, 5-year survival rates on stage 4 colorectal cancer, they're not good. They're like 12, 13%.
Yes.
You're not out of the woods yet, but you've got definitely some positive stuff going on. So a lot of people, when they go through chemo, and you said you took a break, a lot of people really struggle with it. It's very uncomfortable. You have all kinds of side effects. This is the problem with the chemotherapy, killing a lot of things in addition to the cancer. Do you feel, and again, there's nothing for you to compare it to, but relative to other people, maybe you're in the chemotherapy center and seeing other people, how do you feel like you tolerate it? My experience with people that have gone through chemo while using a carnivore or even a ketogenic diet is it's less of a problem, and they're able to tolerate it better. Do oncologists give you any sense of you're having less side effects, perhaps, or maybe not?
I think the oncologist is a little bit shocked, to be honest with you, every time I meet with him for chemo, discussing my symptoms, because yes, Dr. Baker, when I first started chemo, actually, I did my first 3 rounds in May of 2022. I did it with the normal, I would say I was Mediterranean, sad diet, whatever. And I noticed I was coming home from chemo and I was just like, I had crashes like throughout the day. Like my Wednesday, Thursday, Friday were just down and up in terms of my energy levels, everything. But when I switched after 3 rounds of chemo to my diet and my fasting and my exercise and upping everything, especially with the carnivore diet, the more and more I got ketogenic towards carnivore, my symptoms, I wouldn't be able to do this interview right now if I stuck to the way I was eating before. And my energy levels, like, it's steady all day long. I don't have any dives. This week, like tomorrow when I get my bottle off, I'm feeling great. This weekend, I'm feeling great. Next week, I'm feeling awesome. People look at me around where I live and they're like, wow, you beat cancer. You going back to work soon? Stuff like that. Like, it's just, I'm doing really well. And I know it's because of my diet. I really do. I just feel it and I monitor it. I wear a glucose monitor. I have been every single day. I'm trying to get more in understanding ketones and this and that. And I understand insulin as well. I'm trying to control that as much as possible. So I'm feeling really good.
Yeah, that's good to hear that you've got that. And I'm sure you certainly appreciate the kids and time with the family, whereas before you take a little bit for granted when you don't know how much time you have left and it's forced on you like that. Time. You'd mentioned you're now on a carnivore diet. What does that look like for you? What is it? I'll let you tell me what you're doing. What are you doing with the diet?
Sure. As of right now, I'm pretty strict carnivore. And I know there's different definitions and you always get asked these questions too. Do you eat fish, pork, eggs, stuff like that? Some cheeses. And I was any types of meats, eggs, fish, I was eating that. But the more and more I get into this, the more and more I'm feeling great and having success, I'm cutting even a lot of those things out, like pork and chicken. I know when I told my 2 sons, I said this weekend and next week, I'm going to do pretty much lion diet. I just enjoy beef more than ever. And I guess when I started this, changing my diet, when I changed over to ketogenic, I was trying to find things to make me happy. Like I wasn't touching any vegetables for sure, no grains, but then I was eating some nuts. I was eating some berries, like a raspberry didn't spike my blood sugar or my glucose. So, but I've cut out nuts. I'm even cutting out berries. I was having the odd keto dessert my wife would make, not the ones you buy in the store. My wife would make it and it was pretty good. But I'm just finding the more and more I get into this, the more and more I have success with my health and how I'm feeling, I'm becoming more and more the strictest form of carnivore or the lion diet. I think Carrie Mann calls it and you call it that too. So I'm there where I'm as strict as possible now.
Do you worry about things like keto? You mentioned glucose. Do you worry about ketosis? There's some evidence that, doing a carnivore diet or any ketogenic diet, which produces ketosis, may have a beneficial effect in cancer. Is that a concern of yours, trying to keep the fat higher and the ketone levels up a little bit?
Absolutely, Dr. Baker. And I think I need to, actually, I got Carrie Mann sending me the keto emoji. We can't buy that here in Canada. So he's sending me that over. And I do try to understand what ketones does, not only for my energy level, switching from a carb dependent person to a ketone user. I know it's great for that, but I've also, I think it was Ben Bickman. I watched a lot of his videos and Dr. Thomas Seyfried. They basically say tumors can't survive on ketones. I think Ben Bickman said he's seen it in one study in a petri dish, but never and that was in vitro. So from what my understanding is, they can't survive. Like tumors look for glucose and they look for insulin to grow. So I really try to be in a state of ketosis as much as possible. The week I'm fasting, I get into it really quickly. I can check my glucose monitor. And yesterday at chemo, when they do the urine test, ketones are flowing. It's at 3.9 after 3 days. So they're flowing out of my urine. So I'm pretty happy. When I'm eating next week, I've started, my A1C score is, I think before I started carnivore, my good friend told me, looking at my A1C scores, you probably were pre-diabetic with your scores. And now I'm down to 5.1, 5.2, my A1C score. So I'm pretty happy with that. But I'm a former athlete. I try to take everything as a competition, and I want to set goals and try to get better and better.
Yeah, and it's an important competition, fighting for your life in many ways. Yeah, and I was going to mention Thomas Safer. I think the thought is that some cancers can utilize ketones, many cannot, and I'm not sure on colorectal cancer. And then there's a concern on glutamate and some of these things. So I think there's some nuance to this, but nonetheless, the diet obviously seems to be helping you. Now, obviously, how often are you getting scanned? You said you've had several scans now. When's the next one, and what was the last one look like?
Yeah, sorry about that. If you guys heard noise in the background, I had some silly alarm going off in the background. I had to turn it off. Scans, Dr. Baker, I get scans through my oncologist every 3 months. I wish it was a little bit more. I do know there is some negatives to scans in terms of they shoot this blue liquid inside you, which is actually it's actually glucose based. So I know it's not the greatest, but I do want to have more scans more frequently. I might try to push for that later when I'm having better results.
Is it a PET scan or is it a CT scan?
Yeah, CT scan.
Okay.
I think I'm pretty sure it's CT scan. No, it's not a PET scan.
Okay.
And I've had CT scans from May to May. I've had 5. I think I've had a total of 8. I think if you want to talk with the first one when I got fully diagnosed, then the 5, and then I had one before I went for my chemo break. And then I just had one at the end of my chemo break. My next one is going to be in November. So back on chemo. And I want to try my best. Instead of doing a full year, I want to try to shorten that, maybe hit it with chemo for 3 to 6 months and then maybe take a break. The more and more I master it and the more and more I see success, I'm hoping that I can do that, because I know chemo takes a toll on my body. And I think with my regimen that I'm having, I'm just trying to have hope and believe that I'm treating it like a metabolic disease. And maybe I think I might be hooking up with Dr. Seaford and Carrie Mann later in the month. And hopefully he can give me some more tips on how to treat it more like a metabolic disease.
Yeah. And I remember I interviewed a gal from Japan. I'm blanking on her name right now. Similar situation. She had, I think, advanced colorectal cancer, and she's still basically plugging along, exercising, doing quite well. So I think I interviewed her about a year ago. Gosh, I think now. But so obviously the focus is keep the cancer at bay, shrink it through chemo, hopefully diet adds to that. Obviously prolong your life expectancy. Hopefully it would be great if it would just, are they ever talking about, hey, it's regressed enough to where we could consider a surgical option? Has that been discussed at all? Is it still just, we're just going to keep plugging away with the chemo and that type of stuff?
Oh, that's a good question, Dr. Baker. When I first got diagnosed at the cancer hospital here in Ontario, I had a colon specialist and a liver specialist before I met my oncologist. And they were like the liver specialist. Like when the colon specialist passed me on, the liver specialist was like, you know what? I think we're just going to attack this with chemo for a bit, shrink it a bit, and then I can do my magic and cut sections out of the liver and it regrows and stuff. And then the colon, I don't think they ever had an issue. They could probably remove that part of the sigmoid. But then when I met my oncologist, after meeting those two specialists, and this was like a month later, so April 2022, I think it was beginning of May 2022, and I started my chemo at the end of May, he deemed me inoperable and he deemed me incurable. And he just wanted to get me on chemo. And just to maintain a quality of life, and that's it. So that was heartbreaking because I had that. But the more and more I get into this, and my oncologist is going to deem me what it is realistically this whole time. But if I can keep getting it smaller, I think there is a hope. I do meet with the colon and liver specialists, not that often, but I meet with them every 6 months. I think coming up soon in November, December, I have a phone conversation with the colon and liver specialist. They might be giving me hope. My goal is maybe to keep shrinking it and get it as small as possible. Maybe we can do a non-invasive surgery where I don't want too much oxygen getting at things too, because I've heard some horror stories there.
Obviously, like I said, the mission is to beat the cancer if at all possible. Just incidentally, have you noticed any other like benefits to the diet outside of the cancer stuff?
Yeah.
Like any other things you've noticed have gotten better?
Big time, Dr. Baker. Like I said, I've been a high school phys ed teacher for 21 years. I have my dream job. And ever since I finished university and I went into my career, just like anybody, the weight started creeping up. And I played university soccer for 2 universities here in Canada. And I was in good athletic shape, probably like from my first year university to like my last year, I was probably like 150 and I got up to maybe 165. But then when I entered my career, the weight kept going up. And to be honest with you, about 3 years ago, I was about 211 pounds. But I still looked healthy and fit as a phys ed teacher. But now when I look at those photos, my face was swollen. You know, I was too thick. And what I've noticed now since I've been on this, I'm down to 160, 165. I'm back to my university weight, my athletic performance weight that I've always wanted to get to. And I struggled for the past 21 years, even as a high school phys ed teacher. So I'm there, my weight, I feel great. My body fat percentage, like I started going to a gym this past summer. So I'm getting all these tests done. My body composition is like 8 or 9%, like really good. I think my mental clarity, I'm pretty clear. I don't have much brain fog. Just mostly I need to exercise more, but I got pretty chiseled just by dieting. And when I started working out again, I'm putting a little bit more muscle mass back on, but I need to up my exercise game too, a little more, trying to push myself because I know that will fight cancer too, if I up that.
Yeah, I think generally exercise is going to be a good thing. When you were diagnosed with this and they said, hey man, this is stage 4, you got mets to your liver, it looks inoperable, we're going to put you basically on hospice. Did they give you any sort of predictions for survivable time? Did they say this is how long people typically survive with this?
Yeah. My colon and liver specialist, when I asked them if I don't start treatment, how long do I have? And they were both realistic. They said, no doctor can really tell you, but looking at the stage you're at, could be a couple months if you don't do chemo treatment. And then, like you said earlier, if you look up the stats, I think I've even Googled and it said my stage with good treatment, you have nine months to a year. And like you said, the 5-year survival rate is very low, like 12 to 14% maybe. So I think I've been doing all right. I've been on this journey now for about a year and a half.
Yeah, I'm looking at the numbers now. It says 9 months is a median survival at stage 4 colorectal cancer. And you're a year and 4 months or something. So you doubled already the median survival rate, or just about, I guess actually pretty much double the median survival rate. So that's a good sign. I'm sure the people that make it to 18 months are more likely to be the ones that get the 5-year survival rate. So that's got to be encouraging to you. How's the family been holding up?
Well, that's a good question. I have 2 sons, Peter and Dante. Peter's 15 and Dante's 13. And my wife, Martha, they've been very supportive. My wife works full time. And so she's got the stress of life. And so she's been doing great supporting me. She's actually became ketogenic diet as well, not carnivore, because she does love her veg. So she's been supportive in that sense. But it is tough living with someone that's going through this. My boys, they've been pretty resilient, to be honest with you. And they're on board and they're learning so much. They watch you as well and all the doctors with me. We travel to and from sports, soccer quite often, and we're watching videos and listening to videos on the car rides. And my son Peter has pretty much been carnivore, pretty strict for the last 6 months. And Dante is becoming it. He's the younger one. He's becoming more carnivore. And I'm really proud of them because they look optimal. Like my son Peter is in grade 10. Last year, he was first year of high school. He actually goes to the high school that I taught at for 21 years. He had a 96 average in grade 9 last year, and he played 6 sports, and he's been carnivore. So I'm really proud of him. They're my number one support systems and fans in life.
When you interact with your oncologist or the chemotherapy folks that administer the chemotherapy, or even the surgeons, have you discussed like dietary strategies with them? Do they care? Do they like, this is crazy, doesn't work, don't bother? What's been the reception from those guys?
Yeah, that's interesting. So in my hometown, I actually received chemo treatment in my hometown. I had an option of going to the cancer hospital where my colon and liver specialists were, but they would have delayed chemo like 3 months as a waiting line. So I'm getting chemo in my hometown, and in my hometown and I have the one that's very supportive, my oncologist. When I went into him about 3 rounds into chemo, I told him that I was going to see a naturopath doctor. And I told him he was in another city, and he right away, he rhymed off, "Oh, are you going to see this doctor?" I said, "Yes." And he's, "Oh, it's great. You're going to do hyperthermia, you high dose vitamin C, mistletoe." And so he was very supportive. So then I started opening up and telling him I'm switching my diet. I wear a glucose monitor. I do all this. I do fasting. And he was very supportive. The other oncologist that works side by side with him, he actually comes out, and I hear him have the discussions with all the cancer patients while they're having chemo. And I have a buddy of mine that asked, because he has the other oncologist, asked him about diet, supplements, fasting. That oncologist, I heard it in front of my eye. He shut everything down. He said, "No, there's not enough research on diet or nothing." He was a little bit very confident, I guess I would say. He was a pharmacist before he was an oncologist. And he says, "There's not enough research. None of that stuff works." That's what he said. And I think a lot of other oncologists, from what I hear, are not as open-minded as my oncologist. So I'm very fortunate that he constantly asks me, "Hey, are you still going to your naturopath?" Hey, when I talk to him about my fasting and I ask him, "Can I get lab tests done to track how I'm doing metabolically?" he's on board.
That's good. That's good to hear that you got some people supportive of that. And like I said, obviously, I think irrespective of whether they support you or not, it sounds like you're doing it regardless, because you notice a benefit. And it's always empowering when you have something that you feel that you can do. You'd mentioned some fasting. You mentioned obviously diet. You mentioned exercise. Maybe you can describe comprehensively all the things you're trying to do, because it's more than just diet. Obviously the chemotherapy is part of this in your particular case, but outside of that, what are the things that you find to be perhaps beneficial, or things you believe are beneficial?
Yes. I have a regimen that I've created myself through my good friend. His name's Dwight Garlow. He's one of my closest friends on this journey. He's an old coaching friend of mine. He's helped me build this regimen. And again, my family members, I have a sister and brother-in-law that support me, and my wife and my kids. They help me build all this by helping me with some research, but I do most of it myself. They're just very supportive. The first thing was diet. That was the first thing for sure that I changed. And I'm carnivore. I try to be in a state of ketosis as much as possible. The second thing is fasting. When I started my journey, I did a 3-day fast. So if I had chemo on a Wednesday, I would not eat Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And that was helping with symptoms. And I did that for a little bit, a few months, but then I researched the benefits of fasting even more. And I realized, hey, I can do a 5-day fast that chemo week. So I stopped Sunday night and I started eating Friday night. It's about 5 full days. And that's been helping even more, especially getting in the state of ketosis. Diet, fasting, exercise. My naturopath, he suggested that right away, because my naturopath doctor actually had a patient who I became friends with. Her name is Ronnie Campbell, and she's got no problem mentioning her name. She had exactly what I had, but more. And she did a lot of these things, especially fasting. So he introduced me to her, and that's where the exercise component came in too. She is a marathon runner and a triathlete. She swims, bikes, and runs. And she was doing that the whole time. She had what I had. This back in 2018 to 2020. She's been in remission now for 3 years. Exercise is a huge part of her game. I got diet, I got fasting, I got exercise. Supplements. I know that if I'm eating good carnivore diet, Dr. Anthony Shafee says you don't really need supplements, but because I'm being beat down quite a bit from chemo, I do supplement a lot. I have about 14, 15 different supplements I take on a regular basis when I'm eating. When I'm fasting, I tone it down. I just take my electrolytes here and there. So supplements is key. I have a naturopath doctor that I received hypothermia. I was doing high dose vitamin C, taking a break from that now. I just want to see what I can do without it. I have mistletoe, which is proven quite a bit with colon cancer. So my naturopath. Then I have an osteopath. I'm up to 6. My osteopath helps with adjusting the organs and getting bowel movements going. And I've never really had a problem, but he helps a lot with just what I'm going through as colon cancer and increasing blood flow to different areas of my body. That's 6. And then 7 is sleep that I have to get better at. And my best friend Dwight is trying to teach me how to get better at that, because sleep is when my body's going to heal the most. So I'm doing that. And then heat and cold therapy is probably the eighth thing. When I started going to the gym past summer, I was hopping in the sauna after every workout, because I know I try to activate the T cells as much as possible and attack it that way. That's eight different things I'm doing, plus chemo, 9.
Yeah. Did they ever get a diagnosis? Did they do a tissue diet? Did they do some kind of biopsy at some point to, I guess maybe, I think you said a colonoscopy, so they probably would have biopsied then. Is it adenocarcinoma? What kind of?
Yeah, so they did a biopsy at the initial colonoscopy, but it was inconclusive. I had to get another one done when they put me into when they attached me to the cancer hospital. And I think it was before or after my CT scan. I can't remember. But that biopsy, from that biopsy, they said your cancer is not genetic. It's not hereditary. And I said, well, what type of cancer do I have? And they all just said, I'm sorry to say, it's a fluke. Nothing caused it. That's what they say. But I think I caused it through my lifestyle.
Yeah, that's reasonable. I think something happens. It just doesn't, I don't buy the fluke thing. You've had multiple scans now. When they're doing scans, they're looking at the liver, but are they looking, is the primary tumor shrunk? Have you seen the actual cancer of your colon actually go down?
Yeah. No, that's a good question. My colon cancer has a blood tumor marker. Before I started my chemo, my CA number was 187, really high. And before I took my break in the end of May, just past May, I had it down to 14, from 187 down to 14. And that was pretty huge, I think. Of course, I guess you want to get the CA number closer to 2, below 2 to 0. And then when I did my CA, just starting back on chemo again, it did go up through the summer being off. I think is high 40s, maybe 49. And my oncologist says, that's your new number. Now you got to chop that down. So
yeah, I was just looking at I thought that was interesting. If you look at the numbers, it's CA125, which is a colorectal cancer marker. And they say, if you have it above 35, that's indicative of colorectal cancer. And so now yours is below 30, yours is 14, which is, that's a good sign. Obviously you're being treated with chemotherapeutic agents, but at least that might provide some level. And has your oncologist said, hey, let's CA125, 14, good job?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's good. No, absolutely. That's good to know. Thanks, Dr. Baker, for telling me that.
What about, did you ever like blood in your stool or anything like that? When you said, I think I've got cancer, but the doctors are missing it. Because a lot of people, it's bloody stools, it's blood on the toilet paper, it's whatever, indigestion, constipation, things like that. What were the things that kept you off that made you think, hey, this is really a problem for me?
Yes. You know what? For a long time, for the past 15, 20 years, because I am blaming it on my lifestyle, I liked a lot of hot peppers, very hot peppers, like ghost peppers. Like I really had a high tolerance. My father, being Italian, we like hot, spicy things. So throughout like my teaching career, there was a couple times I went to my family doctor. I had fissures. There was blood. But he said, tone it down on the hot stuff and this and that. Maybe that could have led to me getting polyps and whatever later on. So I stay away from nightshades as much as possible, especially the hot ones. But then when I went off work, because I knew something was wrong with me, January 31st of 2022, that's when I went into my high school principal and said, I don't know what's going on with me. I haven't slept in 3 months, like November, December, January, I haven't slept. So then when I went off, I got diagnosed as being mentally depressed and having anxiety. And I got my family doctor saying, when I was telling him my stool is getting really thin, he's, just drink prune juice. Like, you're too young. Like, just fix it. Like, just drink some prune juice if you're constipated or whatever. But then I was noticing, so I was off for February 2022 and then into March. It was actually a spring break at March. And I was still like, I thought I was mentally depressed. I didn't know what was going on with me. I went out for dinner with my family for a steak dinner, actually at Keg. And I went to the washroom right away, and the stool was even thinner and blood, big chunks of blood at the end of it. And so that month, March of 2022, I was diagnosed myself. I said to my wife, I think I have colon cancer. I need to get this checked out. And then my wife being pretty optimistic, well, even if you do, they can fix, like, colon cancer can be chopped out, fixed and whatever. But anyways, by the time I convinced my doctor to get me ultrasound, colonoscopy, everything, I think it was getting worse. And the blood in the stool, it continues from time to time throughout the last year and a half. Like I have colon cancer, right? So I think it's a side effect of the chemo too. Sometimes it streaks the stool. It's not gushing blood, but there was a lot of evidence that I found out, and I had diagnosed myself of that. But I'm doing pretty good. The size of my stool is thickened up quite a bit for the past year and a half with what I'm doing.
Yeah, and that's, people may understand it, because sometimes the caliber of the stool will change, because as a colon cancer takes up more room in the intestine, the stool has to get smaller to get by it. And so you end up with these very thin, sometimes thin stools, and that can be an indication of an obstruction, some sort of obstruction, which could be cancer, particularly coupled with the blood. And I don't know if you presented that to your primary care physician, but you said, hey, doc, my stools are getting smaller and I'm bleeding. That would be a pretty big indicator. As an orthopedic surgeon, I'd be like, wait a minute, it sounds like colon cancer. So I don't know. It's funny because you hear about the differences between the Canadian healthcare system and the U.S. healthcare system and, say, the NHS and England. And one of the things is the Canadian, they're like, have you tried MAID or something like that? Is that wasn't, because you were on palliative care. They discussed with you, hey, let's just go ahead and off you type of stuff. Have they talked to you about that?
Sorry, what's MAID?
It's basically assisted suicide, basically. Things where that's made the news quite a bit in Canada lately.
You know what? No, that wasn't discussed. But when I first got diagnosed and I started my cancer treatment in my hometown, there was a horrible rumor going around that I was dying in a hospice, because someone probably caught wind of me being palliative and terminally ill. And I wasn't as open as I am obviously now. And I was hiding and just taking my kids to sports, and that's it. So people weren't seeing me around. So that, I think when people hear my diagnosis, they're like, yeah, this guy's on his deathbed. But no, they haven't. That MAID was never suggested.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. Again, it's a controversial topic, but I'm a little upset, sad about that in many ways, particularly who they're offering it to.
Yes.
There was a gal who had like an anorexia, and they were like, and I've seen so many women fix with anorexia with just going carnivore and just feed them steaks instead of trying to kill them. But nonetheless, you're optimistic. I can tell you got a great attitude. You've got very proactive. It's positive. I can see where people get very depressed with this. In your mind, you're going to beat this. And what does the future look like to you? What are you planning on doing now that you're going to kick cancer's butt, and where are you going to go from here?
Thanks, Dr. Baker. My number one goal is my two sons. I want to see them keep growing up. I want to see them attend university, maybe get married. That's my number one goal and motivation. And I think if I didn't have those two boys in my life, I don't know if I'd be doing that. And my wife, same thing with her. I want to grow old with her, and I have a sister and a brother-in-law that are very on board. I just lost my father, a little tough right now. I got my mother still around. So I just want to be there for everybody. Another goal of mine is now, especially with my YouTube channel, it's blessings on my journey. It started. I want to get the word out of what I'm doing to help other people, to inspire other people. And that's happening. I'm just totally blown away with some of the comments and viewings that I've been getting. And it's helping me out a lot too for my future, because I think it's good for my mind. And another thing, Dr. Baker, this is something excited. My family just purchased something last night, and I think you're going to be pretty excited with this. We've never had a pet ever, and we brought a puppy home for the first time last night. And we've been watching a lot of your videos, especially with your dog, Maximus, on how to feed dogs. So this morning, we brought him home late last night, and he slept in a pen, little puppy, Bichon poo. I went out this morning and I bought extra lean ground beef, put it in his bowl, and he devoured it. And we actually got sent home with the food I think the people were feeding him. It was like the dog food, kibble, whatever. And I said to my wife, we're not feeding this anymore. We're doing what Dr. Baker does. And I bought liver bites as treats. It's just liver, beef liver, no extra ingredients. So I'm pretty excited about that. And I think it's going to make my family life better. And I hope maybe you can help me out with that and encouraging my wife, especially. We got to stick strict carnivore with our dog's named Mario.
Yeah, no, Mario's going to be happy eating meat. My dog's been doing it, gosh, a year less than I've been doing it. So I'd done it a year, and I said, why the hell am I not feeding my dogs this way? And they've been doing it for 7 years, and they're doing great. My Golden's just about to turn 12. My little Maximus, who's a Coton de Toulier, a little French little dog, he's kicking butt. He's funny, man. He's aptly named because he thinks he's super tough, but he's only he's 15, 16 pounds, but he's got the heart of a lion. And I don't understand at all, particularly the pet industry, the pet food industry. I understand it's probably financially motivated to feed dogs friggin' wheat. I mean, it's like, where the hell are they going to get that in the wild? But they absolutely, and you're doing the right thing with the leaner cuts, because too much fat will end up with diarrhea. They don't need as much fat as humans do. They just don't have they don't have the brain size that we do. So that's good to hear. And you're right. A dog, I've had cats and I've had dogs. I personally prefer dogs, but I think they just have the dogs are always happy to see you, man. Doesn't matter what's going on. They're happy to see you, and they always put a smile on your face. I think that's pretty, they definitely, my dog Maximus is sitting right outside the door waiting for him. Whenever I go do a podcast, he's waiting outside the door if I don't let him in. And yeah, it's pretty cool. So I'm glad you have. You've got a YouTube. What's the name of your YouTube channel, by the way?
Sorry. Blessings on My Journey.
Blessings on My Journey. Okay. And so you say you get a lot of people commenting, and I hope a lot of people throw their support behind you, because it does make a difference. There's not only, like I said, all these things you're doing, the treatments, the therapies, the diet, the fasting, the exercise, the supplements, all that's important, but also the mental side, the positive attitude actually does have an outcome difference in the support. Having support and having a positive outcome or positive mental attitude will make a difference. There's even studies that show that, on attitude and belief in what you're doing, whether it's placebo or not, but it still has whatever reason, your brain chemistry changes or something's going on to allow you to do this. One of the concerns with chemotherapy is you're suppressing a lot of stuff. How's your immune system? Have you gotten a cold? How you been doing with that stuff?
That's a great question. So last year from May to May, I was wearing a mask quite a bit, because I was really concerned about my immune system. So was my oncologist. Obviously, he didn't want me flying on a plane, and I haven't flown on a plane. I'm very careful, but part of my supplements, I up my vitamin D quite a bit. My good friend Dwight, when he passed me on to people like Dr. Peter Osborne and Ben Bickman, explained the importance of vitamin D, and especially for cancer patients. So right off the bat, I figured I was vitamin D deficient, like a lot of us are in North America. So I upped that quite a bit. Like at the beginning, I was taking like 100,000 international units for a couple of weeks, toned it down. I checked my scores, my naturopath. Even my naturopath wanted me taking 10,000, because he's a little bit behind, I think, on the research. I take about 20 to 30,000 a day now. And I get my blood checked, my vitamin D checked, and I'm in the optimal, what they call safe range. I might be a little bit above it, but it's nothing in terms of being toxic. So I think the vitamin D helps, along with all the other supplements. Like I take K2 and zinc and a whole bunch of other different electrolytes and other things that I just added in. I actually wasn't taking vitamin B. I just added B complex and B12 in a couple months ago, and I'm doing well with that too.
Now you had mentioned, I think I heard you say something about maybe you're going back to work. Is that what I'm hearing from you? Are you thinking about that or doing that?
I think I would love to go back to work, Dr. Baker. It's my dream job, being a high school phys ed teacher for 21 years. And I was actually the phys ed department head, athletic director at my high school. I would go back, like I've been helping volunteer as a coach. Like I'm coaching junior boys volleyball right now. I'll do basketball. I'll do girls soccer in the spring. I help out with track, whatever I can. As the former phys ed department head, athletic director, I'm off. But it's physically impossible. Like I have this chemo bottle attached to me right now going in me. I have 3 days, like for 3 days, and I have this poison. Like it's impossible for me to do anything like at work and with my appointments. I have a lot of medical appointments not just my oncology, my naturopath appointments, my osteopath appointments. I would love it. And my goal is to, like you said, what does my future look like? I'm just enjoying my quality time with my family right now, but definitely would love to get back to work.
If you said you're back to coaching, so you're out there when you're not hooked up to chemo bottle, you're out there on the sidelines coaching the various sports and stuff like that. Yeah. It sounds like maybe I don't know how big the town is, but it sounds like there were rumors of your death have been wildly exaggerated, not the old sort of saying like that. But when you first started showing up to coach, are people like, wait, I thought you were dead or something? Has there been a response from the community, from the people around you?
Yes, big time. I think last school year, that's when I started showing my face around again. And I was wearing a mask, and they could see my bottle being attached to me. Because even when my bottle's attached to me, like tonight, actually, I'm heading back to my hometown to coach volleyball. And I coach with my good friend, Dwight. He helps me with all the sports teams. They see me, and I was getting better and better at the school year last year when they kept seeing me. And then by the summertime, when I told a lot of the staff members and people around that I'm taking a chemo break, I think they probably assumed, okay, this guy's beating cancer. And just seeing me around this summer, and even right now, They see me around and I'm doing all right and I look pretty good. And when I don't have the chemo bottle attached to me, like next week, midweek, I honestly, I feel like I don't have cancer. And there's days that I can challenge a student in my gym. Let's do 100 push-ups right now. And I'm beating all of them. So I'm feeling good.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. So knocking out the push-ups, that's obviously, did you end up losing a lot of weight through either diet or chemotherapy?
Yes. So like I said, I was the heaviest before I got diagnosed. And then I think with getting diagnosed with cancer and the stools getting thin, I wasn't eating as much when I was off work before I diagnosed myself. I got down to probably 190, probably by the cancer. Then when I started fasting and the carnivore diet, weight just kept shedding off. I think I got as low as a year ago. I got as low as 148 when I first really started fasting hardcore and changing to a ketogenic diet. But once I got down, I think that was a lot of water retention too. I got back up to 160 with a good diet. For the past year, I've been 160. Like I can go in, I'll stop eating on a Sunday night and I'll go into chemo and they'll weigh me. And maybe on the Sunday night, I was 162 from eating all week. When I get into my cancer clinic, I'm 160. And maybe this Friday, I might be 158. So I fluctuate because of my fasting, 158 to 162, but I'm pretty much dead on. My body, I don't lose any weight now fasting. I don't really gain much. Only time I gain a little bit in the summer, I was working out, exercising, and I was doing heavy squats and a lot of chest and back exercises that I gained maybe 4 or 5 pounds, depending how much I was working out.
Is there like a limit on the number of chemotherapy sessions you can do? Can they say we can only give you X amount of sessions and you're done? Is there some thought of that, or is it just indefinite?
Everyone asks that question, Dr. Baker, because most people going through chemotherapy, they say, okay, you got 6 rounds of this and 6 months of this. And for me, it's indefinite. I think when my oncologist said, you're inoperable, you're incurable, you're palliative, you're terminal, this is line 1 of chemo. I get this certain amount of chemo dripped in me at the hospital. Then I get a different chemo in from the bottle. When this stops working, we'll try line 2. You know what I mean? I think there's line 2, 3. And then after that, I think I'm dead from what the sounds of it. So I'm indefinite.
So you're on the same initial first.
Same initial.
They haven't had it changed because you've continued to have a response the whole time. Correct. So that's encouraging. So there's, even if you didn't, you would have some. But the other thing is, it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like since day of diagnosis, you've just progressively gotten healthier and felt better. Is that fair to say? You're getting stronger, which is a good sign, by the way. But is that what I'm hearing? Is that what you're saying?
100%. I feel like health-wise, besides this horrible cancer that's in me, I'm the best I've ever been in my life, health-wise, in terms of the way my body feels and the weight I'm at and the mental clarity and everything. And actually, my oncologist is shocked. He's like, you're not losing any weight. Like he's concerned that I'd be losing weight having cancer every time I check in. But then I actually had a couple times, actually at Christmas time, we went to Florida and I took just one cycle off this past Christmas. Went to Florida I think we were there, the family was there for 9 or 10 days. I came back and I was heavier. I got up to, because I didn't fast. I let myself just eat a lot of carnivore, a lot of keto. And I was up to 174. I was bothered by that. But then once I got back to my routine, I was back to 160 and I was good.
All right. 18 months into this. I'd love to do one of these at 5-year point, man. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's make a plan, man. Let's make a plan for whatever that is, 2027.
One more thing, Dr. Baker. I watch your videos a lot and sometimes I see your workout videos. I would love to meet you someday and even have work out with you. If that ever, someday I'll come visit you.
If you're in the neighborhood, if I'm out in Canada, I'd love to do it too. Anyway.
That'd be awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Well, I also just want to mention one more thing. I don't know how long we're going to be going on here, but we appreciate you so much. My sons and I, we really enjoy all the funny shorts and short videos you've been making where you dress up. You're the doctor and the mustache is falling off and you dress up as the keto guy, the vegan person. It's hilarious. And we're loving those ones because it's less serious, but you're getting a good point across. Yeah, we're going to do a little fun one today. In fact, we're debating whether we want to do that or not because it's goofy, but at the same time, I think it's just funny. And I think people need to laugh sometimes. I think laughter is the best medicine, as some say. I do have to go though. I've got to do some consultations now. But man, Jeff, good luck to you. Thanks for coming on. And I'm serious. Let's do this again in about 3.5 years when you've beaten this thing and you're 5 years
Past that point, you're beating the odds, man.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
All right, guys. See everybody tomorrow. Y'all take care. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye-bye. Bye-bye.